And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. We're delighted that you've tuned in and that you've found that our channel exists. We've got a new sunspot rising right under my pointer right here from this SDO imagery. Right there, that little bright region. So a new sunspot, I believe this one's called 2853. And this active region up here is just a plage. A plage, not to be confused with a plague, which is a French term for a sandy beach, which is what the feature sort of looks like in visible light. Here's a view of the magnetic fields, the colorized magnetogram, and that new sunspot group is pretty small, and it was so far alpha class when we did show prep. We'll show you high-res imagery at the end of the video. Here's some more footage from the Solar Dynamics Observatory in 171 angstroms. My personal favorite ultraviolet emission spectra from ionized iron. And we'll zoom in even closer. There's your close-up of the latest sunspot. So otherwise weak solar activity, folks. There is a heightened solar wind velocity. We'll get to it. Plenty of stuff to cover on today's Daily Space Weather video. So here's a star chart. If you're wondering the path the sun will take across the sky and what's above your head, check out in-the-sky.org. And if you're up before dawn, you may see Jupiter and Saturn up there near the ecliptic, which is this yellow line right here. And we're located in Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. Speaking of locations, here's where items in the solar system are located. We'll advance this 1 week. And there's where we expect things to be on August 18th. The radial flux still only at 73 solar flux units. Here's a 1-year chart of that to put it in context. The black line is the radial flux. Expect an uptick in the radial flux in the coming days, especially since we have a sunspot. No space weather storms or geomagnetic unrest forecasted by NOAA. That's the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard. Let's take a look at global seismicity. And we've seen a bit of an earthquake swarm here in Alaska, the Caribbean, and the Kamchatka Peninsula area here north of Japan, in between Japan and Kamchatka. No major quakes over the past 24 hours. Let's scroll up the list here. So one of those near the Kuril Islands was a 5.5. That one's south of Kamchatka. The volcanic hotspot, the extremely desolate peninsula in easternmost Russia. There was also a 5.1 in Yemen. That's a pretty rare spot for an earthquake, in my experience. Deep quake struck Afghanistan. It was a 4.1 magnitude at over 170 kilometers estimated depth. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge saw a 5.1 magnitude quake. And there was one southeast of the Loyalty Islands there, that one north of New Zealand. China saw a 4.8 magnitude quake. Uzbekistan saw a 4.9. And keep in mind, folks, these types of earthquakes can be foreshocks, so please have an earthquake plan if you've experienced a tremor. Before we go on to volcanoes, let's take a look at some drone footage here. This is from Geldingadlir in Iceland, and check out the amazing drone footage here. We'll give you the channel information in a minute and the drone that was used. Check out the lava lake. Now this lava lake was actually receding at the moment. That's why you can see these hot spots around it. You can see that lava lake there. And this one was from the YouTube channel DKNY. Go subscribe over there. The drone that was used here was a DJ Mini 2. So some spectacular footage there, and we've shared this as a community post. Yet another reason to subscribe to our channel. Yowzers. Let's see what else is erupting. Fagradalsfjall, Another Icelandic volcano has been producing new eruptive fissures. So new fissures opening there, located north of Coronal, in the direction of the lava tunnel, southeast of the side of the crater. Fissures might be related as a response to small earthquakes or lava flow surrounding the hill. It cannot be ruled out that the fissure formations are an indication that magma is arriving toward the surface. Karimsky on the Kamchatka Peninsula, we just referred to it earlier, exploding, producing a 10,000-foot ash plume over Kamchatka. Also Shivaluch, 13,000-foot ash plume as the Shivaluch Kamchatkan volcano explodes. Chirinkatan, south of there, where we saw that earthquake activity there in between Japan and Kamchatka. Chirinkatan, now erupting as well, exploding, 10,000-foot ash plume over it. Suwanosejima, in the Ryukyu Islands, also near Japan, 7,000-foot ash plume produced by it. And now Tal back on the list. After 16 days of calm, degassing activity returned to the Tal main crater. Sulfur dioxide emissions reached 3,849 tons yesterday. 107 volcanic earthquakes occurred between the 10th and 11th of August. Merapi now back on the list as well, exploding, 10,000-foot ash plume over it. Minor eruptions from Pavlov on the Alaskan Peninsula. Samisa-Pochnoi in the Aleutian Islands, 10,000-foot ash plume over it as it explodes. And go into central Mexico, we see another explosive volcano erupting there, Popocatépetl, producing a 20,000-foot ash plume over central Mexico. Fuego, 16,000-foot ash plume as it explodes. That's located in Guatemala, by the way. Revenador also exploding. Quite a volcanic uptick here, folks. Explosive activity from Revenador in Ecuador. 16,000-foot ash plume, flight level 160. Sabancaya exploding, flight level 240, as it produces a 24,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Copihu, volcanic ash not identifiable, although reporting an 11,000-foot plume of ash over Chile and Argentina. Copihu located near the border. Nevados de Chilean, intermittent emissions and explosive activity producing a 14,000-foot ash plume. And let me just bring up a quote from Winston Churchill. If you're going through hell, keep going. No matter how bad things get, don't pole vault the caldera. Have hope. Where there's life, there's hope. The world's not ending. Some of us are preventing that actively. Don't pole vault the caldera. Visit our links and support our channel. Next, looking at solar flares. We don't see any major solar flares. And a C-class flare is just about to leave the list. That's a 3-day chart of the GOES X-ray flux as measured by the GOES 16s. Sun-facing suite of instruments. No strikes in the proton flux. No coronal mass ejections headed Earth's way. No space weather in the forecast period. The GOES magnetometer there over the past 3 days looking fairly smooth. We could see a South Pole current sheet come through here, especially if Sunspot 2853 strengthens, but in any case, Earth is now solidly in a North Pole-oriented current sheet. So shown here in green, you can see this North Pole current sheet. South Pole current sheet over here towards stereo B. That's the top view ecliptic plane field plot. Here's a line of sight ecliptic plane field plot showing you a 3-dimensional view of the heliospheric current sheet polarity. Here's the coronal hole plot, which also shows you the sun's B field. Yeah, those blue potential field surface source lines, that's the sun's B field, folks. And we've got some trans-equatorial North Pole-oriented coronal holes here, south of that plage and ahead of Sunspot 2853. So that could become geo-effective. We'll be monitoring that. Also, we've got some South Pole-oriented coronal holes rotating out of the Earth-facing portion of the solar disk. And we've got an increased solar wind speed from that. We'll get to it in a minute. And the solar flare probability has gone up a little bit as we've got a sunspot over here. If you want to look this up yourself, you can find it on the Integrated Space Weather Analysis page. It's the first entry, actually. First entry on the first page on the first tab. KP index, a measurement of global geomagnetism here on Earth, is at 2. Calm conditions here, despite an increased solar wind velocity. So here's a real-time solar wind. And we just saw the phi angle shift here. And just saw the solar wind speed reduce while we did show prep. It was actually over 500 kilometers per second. So this looks like the subsiding of the current coronal hole wind stream. So now this is going to be dropping down here. Expect this to drop down quite a bit here. Current conditions are 474 kilometers per second for the solar wind velocity. Solar wind density just under 5 protons per cubic centimeter at 4.86. Here's the magnetohydrodynamic pressure as modeled by the space weather modeling framework over the past 4 hours. We show the data daily. It's not visible in archival format, at least not yet. It's courtesy University of Michigan. And you can expect to see the pressure drop down here right at the end with that little reduction in the solar wind velocity, and indeed you do see it. Next, ground magnetic perturbations, looking at changes to the Earth's B field, geospace delta B, also 4 hours of data. And since there's a polar excursion going on, we show it on the regs every day on the daily space weather. Changes to Earth's B field, giving us insight into the location of things like the geomagnetic poles and Earth's magnetic poles. I'm going to let it play through a second time here as it refreshed. We want to get a full run of 4 hours. So please bear with me. It's a perfect time to take a sip of your coffee. Or perhaps press subscribe or share if you haven't yet done so. Tell your friends and foes about the channel, folks. Anyway, there's 4 hours of ground magnetic perturbations. Congratulations on realizing our channel exists. It hasn't been easy getting to 2,000 subscribers, and we will be doing a special about that today. So our weekly Wednesday live stream AnyChat session, you ask and we answer. So make sure you tune in. Wednesdays at 2 p.m. We'll be coming at you again today. Check our playlists as well. And if you want to see the previous live streams, it's weekly smAsho stream / AnyChat. Again, every Wednesday at 2 p.m. we'll be streaming live for about an hour. So join us today for our 2,000 subscriber special. It'll be a YouTube exclusive. And if you haven't subscribed over on Twitch, go follow us on Twitch. We're almost at 100 followers. Be our 100th follower. Today's cosmology segment is integrated into the daily space weather video. We'll just briefly talk about the crossover between different branches of science. So this happens with us all the time as we find ourselves blurring the lines between things like meteorology and astronomy, for example. And this is what happens. You have to stay in your lane enough that you're in your lane, and you have to stay out of your lane enough that it's interesting and cutting edge. If you're not doing anything to advance the science, then what are you really doing? What's the point? Anyway, today's astronomy picture of the day isn't astronomy at all. It's meteorology. One of the rarest cloud formations that you'll find, mammatus clouds. These are typically associated with severe thunderstorms. And check out the way they're in lines right now. Usually, I've never seen these in these like filamentary looking lines before. Those are over Saskatchewan, Canada. Anyway, that's today's astronomy picture of the day, as NASA is reminding us to make sure that you don't stay in your lane, as many very important scientists like Pierre-Marie Robitaille didn't stay in his lane and caused more advancement of the heliophysics than we could have ever expected. Now, yesterday we talked briefly about Bepi-Colombo and the solar orbiter skimming past Venus. You can find information about that on esa.int, the homepage of the European Space Agency. And here's one of the images from Bepi-Colombo's flyby, a gravity sling, a gravitational assist, where two different spacecraft within 33 hours of each other both did a Venus gravity assist. So this is Bepi-Colombo. We'll be looking for the solar orbiter's data soon. Also, there's a video here on what is space weather. And so you may want to check that out. It's, yeah, it's pretty serious. And we didn't just leverage ourselves in the realm of space weather. Pardon me. We didn't just leverage ourselves in the realm of space weather just because it's a trend or anything like that. It's because of the emerging importance of space. So I won't go any further into that. And I don't want any copyright strikes. Please support our channel by visiting our links. And if you click smAsho merch, you'll find our merch shop. You can link right to that from our homepage, smashamash.com. All kinds of changes coming there. Thanks everybody who's clicked. Again, that shop is located right there at smAsho merch. You can also find our social media on our homepage. smashamash.org will redirect you here. You can even play our first 9 videos of smashamash.org presents the sun. And today's featured product is the My Vaccination Status is None of Your Business. Vaccinate This, the classic t-shirt, because nothing says don't run me over or shoot me like an orange t-shirt. Also, it's a great indication that you're living in an open-air gulag because of, well, because of the COVID. And I won't go any deeper into that. It's the daily space weather. By the way, I'm wearing the shirt right now because I'm not only smAsho Mash, but I'm also a client. So here's a quick tidbit. Because my vaccination status is none of your business. And if you're my doctor watching the video, then make sure you leave a comment and tell your doctor pals about the importance of our videos. Today's random number in our cosmology segment is 1010. And 1010 coincides at the Neil Gorel Swift-Bat X-ray Observatory with quasar B2227-0848. There are the X-ray outputs. The hard X-ray flux from this quasar, and this is a full spectrum radio quasar. How do we know? Because we looked at it. So we're going to go down the electromagnetic spectrum here. Here is that area of space in gamma, and you can see some very bright regions associated with that, an indication that this is indeed a gamma ray producing quasar, in that it is in a fairly empty portion of space. Here is a false color image in X-ray, and we're seeing a heap and helping of nothing, but it does show up in UV. So this will give us some idea of the plasma sphere associated with this quasar. Actually, let's go back to X-ray for a quick minute here to make sure it's not showing up. So it's not showing up there in X-ray, but it is there in UV. So here it is on the Galix. And you can see that rather irregular, likely cloud of plasma there emitting ultraviolet radiation. And let's go back down the list a little further here. Here it is in optical. Great view there from the high-resolution optical imagery of pan-stars. And last but not least, we'll look at it on the 2MASS. There it is in infrared light, an indication that it is indeed a full-spectrum radio quasar. And it's at a fairly empty portion of space there. That's why it's so dark in infrared. That's today's cosmology quote random end quote object, quasar B2227-0848, which coincides at the Neil Gorel Swift Observatory with number 1010. If you want to follow your favorite transients, just head there and type them in. For example, I don't know, how about the Vela pulsar? There are the transient X-ray bursts from the Vela pulsar, one of the more interesting objects in the Milky Way galaxy. And once again, there's that quasar. And here it is once again in UV. And that's today's cosmology segment. We hope you enjoyed it. Check our other cosmology segments. There's a playlist for it. And you can find all of our playlists at youtube.com/smashamash/playlists. I would also remind our viewers to Mensa, because making Earth not suck again is up to you, not giant heaving bureaucracies that can't even get out of their own way. Continuing on, let's check the electron flux around planet Earth. And there is a bit of electron flux. It looks like we see some charging hazards here around places like Central America, the Western Caribbean, and indeed the North Central Pacific. So some minor surface charging hazards there caused by electrons. Here's the relativistic electron flux over the past year. That's a solon.info. Solon.info/solar is where you can find all that data. Here's a 3-day chart, and we continue to see the electron flux cratered. We can expect to see this rise soon as the coronal hole wind stream appears to be subsiding. So here's the NOAA forecast. They tend to agree with me here. We're going to see an uptick in the electron flux. No surprises there. Here's the total electron content forecast right after we show you a diagram of Earth Van Allen belts. So there are Earth Van Allen belts. Feel free to pause the video. Here is the total electron content forecast, showing you electron density throughout the whole air column. And we see a little bit of chaos here, actually. Some anomalies over the central Atlantic. I'm going to let it play through a second time here. Note time and date stamps. This gives you ideas of GPS error likelihood. And it actually does work quite well. So a little bit of chaos here. As this coronal hole wind stream subsides, we can expect to see this to look a little bit more orderly in the next day or two. Next, a diagram of the atmosphere and altitudes and electromagnetic penetration and so on. We're going to show you the F ionosphere next. Here's the ionogram of the bridge between Earth and space, the ionosphere, located at about 300 kilometers of altitude, the F layer, in vibrational frequency shown in megahertz, millions of vibrations per second. And we've got some minor anomalies going on here. Here's a latest image from 9:30, and here are the anomalies. This is departure in megahertz from the 30-day mean. And if you're wondering the scale, blue is high-frequency anomalies, red is low-frequency anomalies. We've got some low-frequency anomalies, especially they're associated with the South Atlantic anomaly, now located over the South American continent. There is the latest image from 9:30 Universal Time. Some minor high-frequency anomalies going on at the moment. By the way, we're going to do a meteorology segment once again today. Make sure you check that out if you haven't seen it. There's a playlist for it. And we just did another meteorology segment. Here is a little teaser for you. It's a water vapor map, and here come bonus features, starting with the El Teide, Spain. Hydrogen alpha imagery. There you go. Obviously, the area to keep an eye on, and when I say eye on, the pun is intentional, is the northeastern limb. Some prominences around the south as well. There are some filaments. Again, likelihood of solar flares has gone up a little bit with the existence of that sunspot. Let's look at the NASA GOES SUVI. NASA GOES 16 SUVI thematic map. Little crown prominence up here we just saw. Otherwise, pretty weak solar activity, folks, despite a little bit of an increase. Next, high-resolution imagery of the closest star. Here's a refresh. And there's Sunspot 2853, still alpha class. Here's a refresh of the colorized magnetogram. And here's some more imagery of the closest star. This one is 304 and 171 angstroms from the Solar Dynamics Observatory. The last day, finally featuring a new sunspot, coming back off of the number of sunspots of 0. Here's a zoomed out view. Great at showing filaments. You can see the North Pole coronal hole looking very defined there in this wavelength ionized helium. And once again, thanks for tuning in, viewers. We likely wouldn't be doing it without you. And may that solar wind be at your back.